Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of Faster Masters Rowing Radio, where having a rowing coach only makes you better. Following a program gives you a true pathway to becoming a confident rower who's respected by your peers. You can become the athlete you want to row with. I'm Rebecca Caro, and I'm joined by my colleague Marlene Royal.
Hello, Rebecca, and hello to our Faster Masters Rowing audience. Good to be here.
Very good to be here. And of course, this is our earlier time for our listeners and watchers in Europe. So the first of every month, we do the show a couple of hours earlier than normal. So is it now 3 o'clock Eastern?
4 o'clock Eastern right
4 o'clock
now.
Eastern, thank you. And hopefully we have some people in Europe who are the European time zones who are able to join us. It is a terribly bad habit I've got into since I stopped living in the UK, is describing Europe as if it was a country. It's a very North American thing. And us Europeans usually go, it's not a country, it's a continent.
It's more than a time zone, right? In other words, right?
It's several time zones, exactly. So anyway, if you're watching live, very nice to have you with us, and you can tell us perhaps where you're listening from. Now, we are really grateful to everybody who has supported our podcast from day one. We got some new supporters this week, so big thank yous to all of you. You make this show possible. So to those of you who are listening and who have found something helpful or useful that we said in the past, or perhaps we're going to say today, please consider making a donation. If you go to fastermastersrowing.com/podcast, the donations start at $1 a month. And you can, of course, subscribe once and then unsubscribe if you want to make a lump sum donation. So thank you to all of you who have been supporting us. This past week, what's been happening in your rowing life, Marlene?
Well, there was a lot going on after the Head of the Charles, with just reviewing some of our athletes' race plans, how they did, what went well, what they need to work on. There were some races like the Head of the Schuylkill last weekend, and then there are people getting ready for the Head of the Hooch, which is a big race this weekend in the south of the U.S., which is it's kind of the biggest race in the south, as an end of the season race. And then the Seattle people are West Coast people are getting ready for the Head of the Lake in Seattle, which is a very big regatta, and it's looking like it's going to be good weather. So we have a number of Faster Masters racing in those regattas. So keeping tabs on people as they're doing last minute preparations. And I also spent a considerable amount of time finishing the course Menopause for Athletes. So that's a certification course I've been taking, and I'm just about at the tail end of it. So that's what I was studying this week to help us design better training programs and things, and insert things into strength programs that are appropriate for our older athletes.
Fantastic. And for me this past week, it was the New Zealand Masters Championships, which were somewhat delayed. I was not there because my part of the country sadly is in lockdown. But I got some very nice people, gave me a summary of what happened and how they ran the regatta. And it appears they put people into bubbles of 100 people all along the bank. So the race course at Ruataniwha has a straight bank for the last 1,000 meters. Even though it's a man-made lake, but it's absolutely straight. And so they were able to bubble people together so they could clamber over the stones and boat into lane 0 instead of from the boat park. And they all had coloured lanyards so they could tell which zone people were supposed to be in. So it was somewhat, you couldn't sort of meet lots of people, but they had a really good regatta, and they were gracious enough to say that they missed the people from the Waikato and Auckland and Northland regions who were all in lockdown and couldn't come and race. But I'm so happy that it happened for them. Now, my background this week, take a look at this. This is from that exact regatta, and it's a photograph of the mixed Hawke's Bay and Gisborne crew who I think are finishing the long distance race, or possibly they're boating for it. Anyway, there was some very witty banter online with the members of that crew regarding why that person had his hand in the air. Someone was saying, but you hadn't crossed the finish line yet. If anyone's interested in seeing photos from that event, the website lor.kiwi, which is Legion of Rowers, has a write-up there. And people have sent me so many lovely pictures. I kind of almost feel that I was there. Now, regular listeners will realise that Marlene and I circle back around a few really key topics on a semi-regular basis. And today is one of those days where we are talking about the Faster Five. Now, the Faster Five is our core tenets of how to be a successful rower as an older athlete. And one of the five is technique. Marlene, you're going to kick off and summarize what is there in the Faster Five in technique that we should be paying attention to.
Well, in the Faster Five technique document, it's really the main premise of a lot of the things that we talk about in the Faster Masters program and the technique section, as well as in the podcast. And one of the things that's so important for older athletes is how to get set up properly in the boat. So that's something we cover in a lot of detail: how to make adjustments, how to adapt things for you if you have your own boat, how to adapt things if you row in club boats, so that you're set up correctly, properly, and you can have a good outing. So we devote a fair bit of time to that. And we talk a lot about what I call get faster by learning how not to slow the boat down. So going faster by not slowing down. And there's so many elements to technique that we can impart to slow our boats down. And sometimes I talk about what you can do to maintain good speed for the amount of fitness that you already have, which is different from gaining new speed. So when we talk about going faster by not slowing down, it's learning things that are very technically oriented that help you maintain the momentum of the boat that you already have. So why have a powerful drive when you're just going to put the brakes on? So we want to learn how to take the brakes off, keep the boat moving. Then afterwards, we go into how do you develop new speed? Because I think there's always a range that you can work in with what you already have, improve what you already have. And then when you've done that, then move on to focusing on some other, maybe more advanced details of technique that can increase your boat speed further. So we devote quite a bit of time to methods of doing that. And we talk a lot about improving your overall quality of movement, which also dovetails into going faster by not slowing down. And sometimes you're in such a rush to think that I've got to go faster, go faster. You're thinking about going faster. You have to switch your attention to moving the boat faster, to improving your control over each part of the stroke and your control over blade work, and improve the quality. If you improve the quality, everything's going to improve along with it, and it's probably going to be a whole lot more fun too. So we go into that, and then we follow into rhythm, and then we try to kind of create a whole picture of how to look at improving what you already have. How do you move to new things, and then how do you put it all together rhythm wise and focus on quality, because bad strokes don't help you go faster.
That's right. And I would say that there is a key tenet to actually all in athletic endeavor, which is do the basics really, really well. It is never, ever time wasted. Even if you feel like you're having a crappy outing and it's not a good day and you're not in the right zone, taking time out to do the absolute basics, by which I mean short slide work, checking your feathering, checking your body positions at critical parts through the stroke. So where are you at the catch? Where are you mid-drive? Where are you at the finish? And by that, I mean the relationship of your legs to your back, to your arms. Those are all things that you can always check and reinforce. And just to confirm this, I vividly remember an outing when I was sculling, and my coach was also sculling at that time, and Steve was in a boat alongside several of us, and he went, "Rebecca, your right arm isn't getting straight." And I'm on the recovery, and for some reason I've straightened my left arm, but I haven't straightened my right arm fully. And of course you sit there and go, goodness me, how on earth did I start? I know you shouldn't row like that. And these things happen. And sometimes you can't always identify why, but it was really helpful for me. It was a really good pointer. And of course it then gave me an absolute focus for the whole of the rest of the outing.
Absolutely. And just things like, are you getting your blades off the water? I mean, when we talk about sculling technique, from an academic point of view, right? We want to first learn the motions, learn the rhythm, learn how to move the boat. You then want to take that to carrying the blades off the water. You then want to take that to rowing harder and maintaining technique. Then you want to take that to rowing harder in difficult conditions and difficult, the difference between our masters rowers who are studying technique and our elite rowers who study technique is that the elite rowers need to maintain the same quality under duress, under physical strain, in difficult conditions, in states of fatigue. So they're still working on the same things. They're just working on holding the same things together in more and more complex situations. So you need to, always go back to basics. It's all basics. You work on the same things that elite athletes work on. Clean releases, clean entries, getting the blades off the water, not losing your rhythm, learning how to change paces, learning how to work with the speed of the boat. It's all the same, and you can't really shortcut it. You've got to go, if things get really crappy out there, like you go out someday and you're just having a crappy row. You're like, why is this happening? Well, maybe you're tired. Maybe your mind is, maybe you're thinking about breakfast, right? Or something. One reason, bring a snack with you. If you're not able to concentrate, you are probably hungry. Okay. So you need a little hit of 200-300 calories, but you can always slow down and do stationary drills. You can always do drills in place. You can always do placement drills. You don't have to be rowing in motion all the time to still be working on things. Like last month, we did the technique video on rowing in circles. You can do an incredible amount of work rowing in circles, especially if you don't have a coach. You can do a lot of blade work stuff by doing these drills by yourself. So if you're, just having a low energy day, but you still want to be in the boat, you can do stationary drills. You can do part slide drills. You can do placement drills. There are lots of, you can do drills in place. There's lots of things you can still do that are going to all get in there and contribute to, the parts contribute to the whole. So there are always things you can do, even if you're not feeling like, you're ready to go out and go do intervals, right?
So if you want to know more about the Faster 5, it's a product that we sell. It is a free gift that we give you when you join any of our monthly subscription programs, and you get all 5. Obviously, technique is just one of them. But if you just Google Faster 5 technique, you will find it, or use the search button on our website. One tiny little thing about our website that I will tell everybody is I've redesigned the homepage. So I've also redesigned the Our Programs page. And if you have a moment and want to go take a little look at the layouts and give me your feedback, I would appreciate it. And for those of you who are regular listeners who know us really, really well, try and look at it as if you were coming to the website for the very first time and you'd never, ever seen it before. So obviously the homepage and the Our Programs page is mostly for people who are new to Faster Masters rather than you, our lovely, loyal listeners and watchers. we have a promotion for you. It's that time of year where we need to find a unique gift for the Christmas holidays. And we all know that this is really, really hard to do. The gift's got to be novel. It's got to be exciting. And ideally, when it gets unwrapped, it should get a wow. The challenge bar is set high. Faster Masters has found the answer. Unidragon.com. They make unique, colourful puzzles that not only challenge your assembly skills, hidden within each puzzle are little animal silhouettes disguised as puzzle pieces. It's a bit hard to describe them. So go to Unidragon, unidragon.com, or search for Unidragon puzzle and you'll see what I mean. They're designed shaped like owls, a wolf, a row of birds, a tiger, and a wonderful fantasy phoenix, all in rainbow swirly colours. Their styling is absolutely stunning, and each one could become an artwork in its own right. But go and have a look for those tiny little embedded animals. They make the Unidragon puzzle a gift to treasure long after Christmas is over. And you can snag yourself a 10% discount coupon using the coupon rowing841 at unidragon.com. Now, our big topic for the week is how to select a camp. In the Northern Hemisphere, the nights are closing in, and I know that this means people start thinking about their holidays for the following year and how they feel when they're off the water is usually, I want to get back on the water. And of course, my personal situation is I completely empathize with that. And camps serve a very useful purpose in the life of a master's rower. A camp is an opportunity to not only go to a new place and row somewhere different, it's also an opportunity to take a particular focus on achieving something for your own rowing, which might be fitness, it might be technical, it might be a new crew combination. In the days when I was younger, and we used to have selection camps where we would go somewhere and we would race and do seat racing and so on, and end up with crew combinations which were going to race the regatta season. But for masters, a camp is an essential part of the changing cycle of your year. It's very, very easy to get stale. And that is not a bad reflection on you or your club or your local coach or your local river or lake. It's just that a change is as good as a rest. So Marlene, let's run through what are the key criteria people need to think about when they're selecting a camp to go on.
Well, first I would think about, do you want to go to a sweep camp or do you want to go to a sculling camp? And do you want to go to a camp where you're rowing in a single or you're rowing in team boats? So that's something that you want to consider, because there are certain camps that might only focus on singles. There are other camps that might only focus on team boats. So I think that those are two things that you want to sort out from the beginning. You know, what's your orientation? What are you interested in focusing on? How much money do you want to spend? Because you may go to a camp in your area that is driving distance, which might not be as expensive as flying somewhere and renting a car and a hotel. You might go to a camp that has an all-inclusive price that includes the room and board once you're at the camp and the instruction and the equipment. You may have a camp that is day camp and does not include a hotel and meals, etc. So different, you have to do a little bit of research and figure out what your budget is and see which situation is more workable for you or fits in more with your goals. I think another thing to look at is, do you want it to be something that is very highly, is it competitive oriented? Is it technically oriented? Is it a combination? Is there a big travel factor here? Like, some people want to go to a camp that has a morning rowing, really focused technical aspect, and the afternoon involves travel because you decide to go to another country. So, there's a balance. There's some people who want to go to a camp because they really want to zero in on their technique, and that is their focus, because they can pay so much more attention to it in a week or a weekend I mean, if you row 5 sessions over a weekend, that's as much as some people row in 2 weeks, right? So they just want a really concentrated, focused situation with video on land, etc. And then there are other people who want the more combined camp vacation element, which means you want to go someplace new, row, have good instruction, and then have some outings or some other activities or tours or something that you can do, wine tasting, cooking classes, and just whatever that you can do in the afternoon. So, there are a lot of different choices. I would say you can also look at what's happening in your area. Is there a local club or your club that says, we're going to have a camp this weekend? This weekend, we're at camp. This isn't our everyday practice. We meet on Friday night and we have a potluck dinner. The coach talks about what we're going to work on this weekend. You row twice on Saturday, twice on Sunday. You have a video session, and you might organize that at your local club, but it's a camp. It's not everyday life. So I think you have to look at how far do you want to travel, what modality of rowing you want to do, what's your budget, how long do you want to go away. Some people like to combine a vacation in a location that is also good for their spouse. Okay, so my husband wants to row, my wife wants to play tennis, and we can do this both in this location. Or my wife wants to row, my husband wants to mountain bike or hike or play golf, and he can do that. And my kids want to go canoeing or whatever. So, you have to, there's a lot of variations of what is going to fit the bill. Does it have a vacation element, really competitive element? So I think just jotting down a few ideas of what you want, how much time you can afford to be away, and and then you start doing some research. There's a lot of really good camp options out there, so there are a lot of things to choose from.
So if you're looking for camps, obviously you can just do a regular search, but there is a rowing directory at rowing.chat/retailer, or just click directory in the main menu. There are options under camps. There are also options under coaching. So look at coaching as well as camps, because it could be that you can hire a coach and have them come to you rather than you go to them. And one of the things that I think a lot of people overlook is the opportunity to hear a different voice in the coach boat. It's quite often said wryly by coaches, oh my goodness, I've said that to them over and over, and then a new person comes along and says the exact same thing, and somehow, hooray, the athlete makes the change. And we all kind of grin and bear it, because sometimes we're the hero and sometimes we're the zero in that equation. But it is really beneficial to go and see how other people coach. You can learn a lot. There are so many different coaching styles and approaches, not just the personalities of the people who coach you, and that you will appreciate what you have, I think, when you've had a little more experience of something that's particularly different.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, because going to a camp is furthering your education in rowing. And from a coaching perspective, I have spent the majority of my years coaching in professional camps. And I think one of the greatest advantages of that is that I had so much opportunity to work with so many different coaches, to hear so many different talks, so many different video reviews, so many different doc talks from all kinds of people who were elite athletes who were coaching, people who were Olympic team athletes who were Olympic coach who were coaching. And they all bring something to your toolbox, because one coach may really zero in at, like, this is his thing. And another coach, this is her thing. Like, everybody's got to have this nailed down before we go any further. Or, so you find out what's important to other coaches. Do they focus on the rhythm? Are they just focused on leg drive? Are they focused on blade work up and above everything? So you learn how they teach things. You learn how they look at it. and they learn from you too. So, I mean, I think that's the biggest benefit from, I would say, like, go to a camp that's like so different from anything that you're used to, and meet other people and see what they're you have lunch, you have breakfast together, you get to meet other people and see how do they run their clubs, right? How do you manage a club? How do you run your master's program? That a camp is a rare situation to sit down and really get to know other people from a lot of other places, or the people from your own club who only see in passing the dock, right? So
Yeah, there are so many benefits to it. And, in an ideal world, I would say 1 to 2 camps a year, maybe one at your home club, maybe one away. And, that away camp, by the way, can be combined with a big race event. So say you
yes.
want to travel to do a really big event, what you could do is go and have a mini camp in the week leading up to the event. So if it's a head race, you could be practicing the steering on the course, and you could be doing your taper on the course and getting to know the quirks of that particular piece of water. If it's a side-by-side regatta, you don't have to go and do the camp at the regatta venue, but it then just gives you a real opportunity to set aside the normality of your life and to really drive your focus into your achievement at a regatta event. And don't forget, camps are not just for athletes who want to race. It can be just extremely pleasurable to go and have a weekend away with your friends from the club. Or, as Marlene said, go on your own and meet new people. There are really good reasons for going on camp, if you can afford it, a couple of times a year, just for the sheer fun of a change of scene.
Well, I do know people who just, they're, for example, there's some athletes who race together, but they may not all row out of the same boathouse. And
Yeah.
there's a group of ladies that I know, they'll remain nameless, from Colorado and California. And they would pack up, one of them has a cabin in the mountains in California, and they'll pack up their ergs and they'll
Oh,
drive up to the cabin and they'll do a weekend retreat of erging.
erging and yoga. That sounds actually really nice,
They just
particularly in
get
the mountains.
they get their friends together. They go up on a Friday. They do like marathon erging together all weekend, have great dinners, have a great time, come back on Monday. So, there's camp, and there's camp from a competitive point of view, then there's camp as a retreat, camp as
Yeah.
travel. But you could also get a couple of your friends together and go somewhere with a boat and do your own weekend retreat. That's also a camp. So
Yeah.
that might be somebody's got a nice cabin on a lake, and you can bring some boats up and just, again, row, have some nice dinners, relax, get out of your normal scenery, get some new impressions. I think that's a really important part of keeping sport fun and interesting.
Yeah. One of the things we're working on in New Zealand is starting a coastal rowing commission here to help organise and structure coastal rowing. So actually, your camp could be just an opportunity to go and try coastal rowing if you've never done
Yeah,
it before, or just rowing in coastal boats. You don't have to be on the coast, recognising that there are a lot of people who live in the middle of a very large continent, and that's a long way to go. Because you can take coastal boats onto bodies of water that are unsuitable for fine boats.
sure. Fine boats. I like that. Fine boats.
Oh, is that not what you call them? You call them shells, don't you? Fine.
Well, no, racing boats, but fine boats is nice. Yeah.
There was, when I was learning to row, there were 3 classes of boat. There was the clinker boat, which we learned to row in, which was made of overlapping planks of wood,
Mm-hmm.
supremely heavy, very stable, very
Yeah.
flat bottomed. Then we moved into what was called a restricted boat. And a restricted boat was a fine shell that had a very small ridge of wood down the center of the hull, which was, maybe a centimeter deep. And it
Mm-hmm.
just gave you a tiny little bit more stability than a fully fine boat. So yeah, and then you went into the racing boats. But I
Good.
think restricted boats have become a thing of the past. They don't make them.
Well,
They were wooden.
I think it's changed. Like, for example, at Weld Boathouse, which is the boathouse opposite to Newell, the Harvard boathouse, they did have the lap streak boats there, which people start rowing in. I don't know if they still have them, but I think the restricted boats now have become the recreational shells, which are wider, more stable boats, perhaps not as heavy, but stepping, some people row them in open water. They're not coastal boats, but they're open water boats, because coastal boats are a very specific design for FISA racing, and they weigh 70 pounds. Whereas a recreational boat might be 35 to 40 pounds, but you can row it in pretty rough water. It gives you a lot of stability, and that's your stepping stone to the fine shell, to the racing shell.
I had the impression that the recreational boats were heavier than the racing shell.
Than a racing shell, yes, but maybe about 5, maximum 10 pounds, maximum. Like I have a recreational boat that's a wider that can really, that's meant for like Nantucket Sound. So I can row it, and I've rowed it in a tropical storm, and it was just fine. And it weighs 40 pounds. It weighs 40 pounds, built of Kevlar, but that's the high end for a recreational boat. Some other open water boats are maybe 37. They're usually under 40. So they are heavier than a racing boat, but not as much as a coastal boat, a coastal single, which is about 70 pounds. I think a regulation boat is.
Yeah.
There are light versions of coastal boats, but they're not the regulation weight. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've learned something new today. And isn't that the reason we do this? You could learn this yourself by going on camp and meeting new people who know all sorts of things that you don't. But for me, that's part of the delight of this sport. It feels like there's pretty much always something new to learn. And even if it isn't something new, it's to hear somebody else's anecdote.
Yes, and we thank Mike Wagner for listening to us. Mike is a very dedicated camp attendee as well as coach. So he says meeting athletes from all different clubs is one of the nicest parts of attending rowing camps. And I agree 100%.
Yeah. So this has been Faster Masters Rowing Radio, done for another week. You can become a student of the sport by buying a program subscription today at fastermastersrowing.com/join. And we really appreciate everybody who listens. If you're listening now and you think you've got a friend who might enjoy this, just flick a link to them, fastermastersrowing.com/podcast, where they can subscribe in all the usual podcast apps. Till next week, bye-bye.